Before the beginning of years, there came to the making of man time with the gift of tears, grief with the glass that ran, pleasure with pain for leaven, love that endures for... Okay, stop the music, stop the music. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I would say that didn't go as planned, but there was no plan. Truly, happy Cinco de Mayo. And I am going to talk about this because Cinco de Mayo isn't Mexican Independence Day. Okay, that's another date. I apologize for not having that date on the tip of my tongue. But Cinco de Mayo celebrates the kicking the French's butt out of Mexico. I think that's probably the most eloquent way to put it. Any day's worthy of a celebration, but that one is particularly sweet in the Mexican mind. The picture I shows you there wasn't really a happy Cinco de Mayo picture. It was actually a photograph of the ritual team. Yes, the ritual team for one of Crowley's 7 rites of Eleusis. The rite of Sol, the rite of the sun. And it is probably one of the most pleasant and entertaining of all of the rites of Eleusis. Perhaps Jupiter's even more festive. But it tells the story as the 7 rites of Eleusis, in a sense, are a celebration of the descent from the tree of life. So like there'd be Saturn here. You're seeing it backwards. There'd be Saturn, that's the first rite, and then Jupiter, and then Mars, Sol. We're going to talk about that. And after Sol comes Venus, or Netzach, and then Mercury, and finally the rite of Luna. So each of these rites of Eleusis don't, at first they exalt the essence of the god of the planetary sphere, like Saturn, does spend a whole lot of time talking about Saturn and his attributes in the dramatic tale. Okay, it's all allegorical and very abstract. But actually, the real celebration of the rite of Saturn is Saturn's murder or suicide. It's Saturn. The rites of Eleusis show the essence of the planetary sphere descending into the next planetary sphere. So we're celebrating more the exit of the planet or the god than the entrance. Okay, we spend a little time with the entrance and everything else. But the whole idea of all 7 rites of Eleusis is to get a feel for the circuitry, to the movement of the flow of consciousness from Godhead down to your head. So the star of Saturn, in a sense, is really Jupiter. And the star of Jupiter needs the power of Mars to have an army. And the star of Mars is really the sun. Okay. And so the star of the sun is really going to be that Venus there. So what's going on to bring that energy flow that descent of vibratory intelligence to the next level. Okay. Is that Sunday school lesson enough? Anyway, so the rite of Saul, let's see, hang on. The rite of Saul okay, it's a Saul party, but it's a Saul party that's going to enthrone her, that officer. Okay, so the ritual officers are, and here's a booklet from 93 lodges. We did the rites every year for a number of years, okay, in Southern California. The officers are of this drama, comedy drama, are Saul himself, who, for the most part of this ritual, Saul doesn't have a single line to say, okay? And for a good part of the ritual, Saul is completely enthroned behind a veil, and you don't get to hear anything from him except he signals to the officers sitting in front of the veil, Aries, Saul, okay, and Leo, fixed Saul, okay. He signals to him by knocking with his staff, but he's back there and he's beautiful, and he's in a like a leopard skin, things like that. So Crowley says for Saul, leopard skin, nemes, white gold over white sleeved robe, and a spear. Now we got Aries and Leo in front, and these, guess who Aries and Leo are for this particular rite. Okay, and Steve Abbott got us all incredibly beautiful sombreros for this, and his is bright red and mine is bright gold and yellow. Now there's other officers here, but there is Saul there with his tongue out, and that is Hugo Anguiano, okay, who is a yogi and has just the perfect physique of a seasoned yogi, and he plays Saul. But instead of the leopard skin and everything else, we did this thematically, and we gave it a Mexican Revolution style instead of a Greek style or so. Okay, and this is about the 5th or 6th time we had done the Rite of Saul, so most of the audience knows all the characters and what they're really doing, and could appreciate the fact that we're putting these characters in these new sort of updated costumes. Everything else remained the same. It was a lot of fun. Okay, and we did it at Steve and Judy's house in Huntington Beach, which had a very long living room, dining room kind of thing. And instead of the cross that Saul will eventually be crucified on, there was a large painted cactus. You know how the yucca cactuses, or I don't know what is a huge cactus. And toward the end, when Saul actually gets crucified, it's crucified on this cactus. And Saul, instead of dressed in a leopard skin, Hugo was dressed in Aztec drag. And the sun god, I can't pronounce this, Huitzilopochtli, that was the sun god. Okay. Now there are cohorts that are responsible for the assassination, just like in the Masonic Hieramic myth with the three ruffians. And the three ruffians that will pull off that assassination are Satan Typhon, Scorpio Apophis. She'll be taking over as Venus. And the wild and crazy Pan-like Bez, played by Leroy Lauer. And anyone else who saw that performance said it can't be performed any better than that. And of course, Aries and Leo, the hapless guardians of the temple, the Secret Service agents that were responsible for letting their guard down while Saul actually gets assassinated. It's great fun. Okay. And I do start off. Okay, Steve and I, instead of having rods that we use to knock the different sections, okay, we had cap guns and we had bandoleros, as much as we could approximate them, but we had real cap guns with real rolls of caps, so that when we instead of knocking, we shot our cap guns. Now, during the dialogue back and forth between Leo and Aries, because they have this comedy kind of dialogue back and forth. If we have time, I'll read a little bit of it. But as we're talking about and debating whether we should, it's late enough in the day, let's close the shrine, and no, it's not, it's the rule that we do this, and no, the rule's meant to be broken. As we're talking back and forth, we've actually got a bottle of tequila, okay? And we didn't have to rehearse this, because after one rehearsal, we couldn't have performed. We'd say this, no pilgrims come tonight, and then we pass the bottle between us, and it worked pretty well. Now there is a portion where the three ruffians, they'll eventually come in and argue with the guardians there, Aries and Leo, and trying to convince them into letting him inside the veil, inside the Holy of Holies. And finally, signaling from behind the veil, the sun himself says, let her in, let her in, And of course, well, anyway, at the Abbott House in Huntington Beach, there was a nice rectangular swimming pool in the backyard, and there were large French doors that ran the whole wall of the living room, dining room area where the rite was. So when we kick Scorpio Apophis out of the temple, when we say, "Be gone, be gone," they literally took her out and threw her in the swimming pool. Okay. It was a wonderful, wonderful summer's event, and obviously it's so memorable that it was a day that none of us could ever forget. Now, I don't know, you can't really see this in this black and white thing, but there's that beautiful cactus in the background, cross-like cactus. And Hugo will eventually be found assassinated and hanging from that. Now, Scorpiopophis, they play sort of a hot couple there. She is kind of the Mary Magdalene kind of figure. But anyway, that Mexican hat dance that I tried to play at the beginning, that's what I, playing Brother Leo, actually sang. I mean, I did it a cappella, but the audience joined in with the claps. Dee 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 dee, like that. Okay. So here's how it came. It comes from the Swinburne's Atalanta in Calydon. And Crowley identifies it as a chorus from that much longer poem. I first heard this poem before I even heard of Crowley. I heard it in an album by the Fugs, or the Village Fugs, that they were called at first. Little did I know that they were their producer and their close colleague was Harry Smith in Greenwich Village. But we love the Fugs. They had, my favorite album was It Crawled Into My Hand, Honest. And it has hits like Ramses II is Dead, and hits like River of Shit, and the very, very literate, very hip psychedelic group from New York City. But they had this thing called the Swinburne Stomp. And that's where I first heard the poem. Before the beginning, the rivers came to the wrecking room. Ah, those are the days when cutting-edge rock and roll was so freaking literate. Anyway, here's how I sang it. Be, and excuse me, I'm not being disrespectful to beautiful Mexican accents. Before the beginning of years, there came to the making of man time with the gift of tears, grief with a glass that ran, pleasure with pain for leaven, summer with flowers that fell, remembrance fallen from heaven, and madness risen from hell. Strength without hands to smite, love that endures for a breath, night the shadow of light, and light the shadow of death. And the high gods took in hand fire, and the falling of tears, and a measure of sliding sand from under the feet of the years, and froth in the drift of the sea, and the dust of the laboring earth, and bodies of things to be, in the houses of death and of birth, and wrought with weeping and laughter, and fashioned with loathing and love, with life before and after, and death beneath and above, or beneath and above. For a day and a night and a morrow, that his strength might endure for a span, with travail and heavy sorrow, the Holy Spirit of man, from the winds of the north and south, they gathered as unto strife, they breathed upon his mouth, they filled his body with life, eyesight and speech they wrought, for the veils of the soul therein, a dime for labor and thought, a dime to serve and to sin. They gave him light in his ways, and love and a space for delight, and beauty in length of days, and night and sleep in the night. His speech is a burning fire, with his lips he travaileth. In his heart is a blind desire, in his eyes the foreknowledge of death. He weaves and is clothed with derision, sows and he shall not sleep. His life is a watch or a vision between asleep and asleep. And that's Sunday school for today. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.